I'm sitting here in my car outside a lawyer's office, and my hands are still trembling. I need to write this down while it's raw in my mind, because the past few days feel like something out of a book I never asked to be in. I'm 34. My wife Mallory is 32. We've been married for 6 years, together for 9. Things between us haven't been good for about a year now. Stress, bills, the way she spends, my long hours at work. It all piled up until it started to feel like every little thing set us off. Last month I suggested we try counseling, thinking maybe a professional could help us stop turning every disagreement into a battle. She laughed in my face and told me therapy was for broken people. I let it go then, but it stayed with me. 3 nights ago we had another fight. Same pattern. She'd maxed out another credit card, and I was angry, trying to keep us afloat financially. I brought up therapy again, this time saying family therapy, because we desperately needed to figure out how to talk to each other without tearing each other apart. That's when she snapped. Family therapy? How about you get real parents first? I froze. In nearly a decade together, she had never once used my adoption against me. But that night she unloaded. She said maybe if I knew where I came from, I'd understand how real families worked instead of pretending with the people who picked me up from wherever. She called my mom and dad, my adoptive parents, those people. My parents, who raised me from the time I was 6 months old, who never let me feel like anything but their son, who I lost in a car accident when I was 22. She didn't stop there. She mocked me, said what would I even tell a therapist? That my mommy and daddy issues came from being unwanted? That I was literally given away? She finished by saying at least she knew who her real family was. I couldn't even speak. I just grabbed my essentials, wallet, laptop, some clothes, and walked out. She screamed after me that I was proving her right, running away like everyone else in my life had. That night I checked into a hotel, still in shock that the person I married could cut me like that. The next morning, something shifted in me. I'd never once considered searching for my biological parents. My adoptive mom and dad were my parents in every way that mattered. But her words kept ringing in my head. Get real parents first. Fine, I thought. I'll get some answers. I called an adoption search agency. Explained I was adopted through a private agency that shut down years ago. The woman on the phone told me it could take months or even years to find anything. But I paid the retainer and handed over what little information I had. That was Tuesday. Friday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it. A woman introduced herself as Patricia Hullworth, a private investigator. She said she'd been looking for me for 12 years. My biological grandmother had hired her when she was diagnosed with terminal cancer, hoping to meet me before she died. She passed 3 years ago, but the search didn't end. My biological parents' estate had continued to fund it. Then she told me the part that knocked the air out of me. My biological parents died when I was 4 years old. Another car accident. They were teenagers when they had me, 18 and 19, and their parents forced them to give me up. 2 years later, they married. They had planned to start looking for me as soon as they turned 21 and could access their trust funds. They never got the chance. And here's the twist I never saw coming. They left everything to me. Their estate has been sitting in limbo for 3 decades waiting for me to be found. It's not some fortune, but it's not small either. Around $180,000 in accounts that grew with interest, a fully paid-off house in another state that needs work but has good bones, and a storage unit filled with things they saved for me. Letters they wrote every birthday until they died. Baby clothes they bought for a child they hoped they'd one day reunite with. Photos. Pieces of them. Pieces of me. I agreed to a DNA test, which confirmed everything. The estate lawyer, Mr. Brenneman, has been handling their affairs for 30 years. He cried when he met me. Told me my biological parents were good kids. Young, scared, pressured by their own parents. He said the minute they married, they started the process of finding me. And when they made their wills, they included a letter addressed to me. They had been on their way back from a meeting with an adoption attorney when they were killed. Meanwhile, Mallory has sent me 3 texts. Stop being dramatic. Your silence is childish. Don't forget we have dinner with my parents Sunday. No apology. No concern. Just demands. Now I'm sitting here thinking about the parents who raised me, the parents who gave me life, and the wife who thinks neither kind of love counts. I have decisions to make. 2 sets of parents loved me in their own ways. One set by choice, one set by hope. And then there's the woman I married, who used the deepest part of me as a weapon. I don't know exactly where I'm going from here, but I know this. I'm not going back to the way things were. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get to say it face to face. We love you. We always have. From the day we had to let you go, not a moment passed without that love. We hope life treated you kindly, that your family cherished you, that joy found its way to you often. What we couldn't give you then, stability, safety, the proof that you were wanted, we can only try to give now. You were always wanted. Always. Signed, Mom and Dad, Lillian and Christopher. I sat in my car clutching that letter, sobbing until my chest ached. An hour slipped by before I could even breathe steadily again. Eventually, I drove home to grab some more clothes. Mallory was waiting. Her face was twisted with fury. Where the hell have you been? My parents were expecting us. Do you know how humiliated I was? I told her I had been taking care of some personal matters. Personal business? You don't have any family business to handle, she snapped. That's when I told her about the private investigator, about finding my biological parents, about the inheritance I hadn't known existed. Her entire demeanor flipped in an instant. Suddenly, she was clinging to me, crying into my shoulder, apologizing for what she'd said earlier. Stress, she called it. She said this was a blessing for us. Her words spilled out in a rush, selling the house, clearing her student loans, paying off her car, finally traveling to Europe. I pulled back cold. Your student loans? The ones for a degree you never finished. Our debt, she corrected. We're married. It's ours. No, I said flatly. That was your debt before we married. It doesn't work like that. Her face hardened. So you're going to be petty after everything I've put up with? Your emotional distance, your weird obsession with boundaries, always siding with your dead parents. My parents who raised me, I interrupted. Whatever, she snapped. The point is this is our fresh start. We could even go to therapy, finally, now that we can afford it. I shook my head. Now you want therapy? When there's money involved. Her expression faltered, but I was already done. I told her I'd be staying in a hotel while I figured things out. That's when she threatened divorce. I looked her in the eye and said, okay. Then she hissed the words that sealed everything. You won't get away with hiding assets. I'll get half. My lawyer will make sure of it. She didn't know that in our state, inheritances are separate property, not subject to division and divorce, especially ones discovered only after the fact. My estate lawyer, Mr. Brenneman, had already confirmed it. She was bluffing, but she didn't know the rules of the game. Not long after, she went nuclear. First came the love bombing, flowers to the hotel, endless texts about our good times, screenshots showing she'd signed up for therapy sessions. I ignored it. 2 days of silence from me, and she shifted strategies. She called my workplace, claiming I was having a mental breakdown and needed intervention. Thankfully, my boss called me directly instead of taking her word for it. He was calm, supportive, and documented her call as harassment. Next, she marched into our bank with our marriage certificate, demanding access to my accounts. The bank called me for verification. I immediately moved everything to a new bank under my sole control. Her boldest move, though, was contacting Patricia Hullworth, the private investigator. Somehow, she dug up Patricia's number, probably snooping my emails before I changed my passwords. She called, pretending to be helping her overly emotional husband with the estate matters. Patricia, who's seen plenty of shady characters, instantly caught on. She recorded the call, legal in her state, and sent me the file. In it, Mallory asked about the true value of the estate, whether there were undisclosed assets, if she could get copies of everything as my spouse, and whether the biological grandparents had left anything extra. Patricia calmly told her that all communication had to go through me or my lawyer. Mallory snapped, screaming about her supposed rights as a wife, accusing Patricia of aiding financial abuse. Patricia ended the call and immediately notified both me and Mr. Brenneman. That was the final push I needed. I filed for divorce. Yesterday, she was served at her workplace. My phone exploded afterward. 73 texts in 2 hours. They swung wildly between pleading and rage. How could you? I'll ruin you. Please talk to me. You owe me 6 years. That money is mine too. Your dead parents would be ashamed. I couldn't help but think, which one's Mallory? You're nothing without me, she wrote. Good luck finding someone who'll put up with your abandonment issues. And then she made her biggest mistake yet. She went public. She posted a sob story online about her mentally ill husband, who'd abandoned her after coming into money. She tagged my job, tagged our mutual friends, claimed I was having a breakdown, manipulated by strangers pretending to be his family. She even wrote, he's chosen money over love. He's so broken from being given away at birth that he can't attach to anyone. I tried to fix him, but you can't fix someone who was never wanted. Now he's hiding assets and leaving me with nothing after 6 years of sacrifice. Screenshots saved. Forwarded to my lawyer. My divorce attorney, separate from the estate lawyer, is thrilled. Mallory had just handed us ammunition for a defamation case, alongside the divorce proceedings. But there's more. Remember the storage unit my biological parents left behind? I finally went there last week. Inside were their belongings. And among them, I found letters. Letters that carried both love and heartbreak, the echoes of people who wanted me. Even when life tore us apart, that I was sorting through the stack of letters and photos when I noticed something tucked inside an envelope, a small key with a note attached. It was for a safety deposit box, already paid for 3 decades in advance. When I finally opened it, I found my biological grandmother's engagement ring, appraised at nearly $15,000, along with a letter she had written to me. Her handwriting trembled across the page. She confessed that she had been the one who pressured her daughter into giving me up for adoption, something she called the greatest regret of her life. My mother had cried every single day for a year, and when she died, my grandmother admitted she blamed herself. She explained that my mother had been driving home from a meeting with a lawyer, the lawyer she hoped would help her find me, when the accident happened. My grandmother spent her last years trying to make up for that mistake. She wrote that the ring had been intended for my mother, Lillian, to pass on to her future daughter-in-law, but now she wanted me to have it. Her wish was that I would give it to someone who loved me truly. Not for money, not for my background, but for the person I was inside. She ended her letter with a plea for forgiveness and her love. That ring will never touch Mallory's hand. The divorce has finally wrapped up, and it was a brutal process. Mallory threw everything she could at me. She went through 3 lawyers, firing 2 when they told her she didn't have any rights to my inheritance. She accused me of hiding assets, which was investigated and quickly dismissed. She claimed emotional abuse, but there wasn't a shred of evidence. She even tried to argue abandonment, though I had only left after her verbal attacks. She demanded alimony, pretending her full-time job didn't exist. The worst blowback came from her own doing. A post she made online mocking my adoption, which my lawyer used against her. It showed defamation and malicious intent, proof that she knew my deepest wounds and deliberately weaponized them. The judge wasn't impressed. In the end, the settlement was clear. She got half of our joint savings, about $3,000, and kept all of her personal debt. I walked away with my inheritance, my retirement accounts, and most importantly, my peace of mind. At the courthouse, she tried one last time to reel me back in. With tears in her eyes, she said she wanted to talk, that therapy had helped her realize she was projecting her childhood trauma. Her father had abandoned her family, and she admitted she feared I would leave her too. She claimed that was why she had lashed out about my adoption. She swore she hadn't meant it, told me she loved my parents. I looked at her and asked which ones. The ones she said weren't real, or the ones she said had abandoned me. She opened her mouth to answer, but her lawyer pulled her away. That was 6 weeks ago. Since then, I've sold the house I inherited for $280,000. The market had climbed, and it was a good time to let it go. Most of the money went into retirement and investments, though I kept $50,000 aside as a down payment for a small condo close to my work. I've also started proper therapy to process everything. Then, just last week, Mallory tried again. She sent a letter through her lawyer claiming she was pregnant, and that the child was mine. She wanted to reconcile for the baby. The timeline didn't make sense. We hadn't been intimate in months. By the time she would have conceived, I was already living in a hotel and knee-deep in divorce proceedings. I did the math and knew it wasn't possible. My lawyer's response was simple. When the baby is born, we'll request a paternity test. Her lawyer came back a few days later, saying his client was reconsidering her options. I haven't heard anything since. Meanwhile, I've been reading through those letters from my biological parents. Every birthday, every Christmas for 4 years they wrote to me. They filled those pages with dreams of the life they hoped I had, prayers that I was happy, and their plans to find me one day. One line from my biological father has stayed with me. I hope you never doubt that you were loved. By the parents who raised you and by us who couldn't. Love multiplies. It doesn't divide. That's where Mallory was wrong. I did have real parents. In fact, I had 2 sets of them. Each in their own way, with their own flaws and limitations, but all of them loved me. And that's something she never managed to do. It's been a year now, and I think it's time to close this chapter for good. Mallory did have her baby. It wasn't mine. The father turned out to be a co-worker she'd been secretly involved with even before our breakup. They're engaged now. I only found out through social media. She posts constantly about how she's finally found true love, and how her old relationship was toxic. If that's the story she needs to tell herself to sleep at night, so be it. As for me, I took a sabbatical and spent 3 months traveling. I went to the town where my biological parents grew up, met people who had known them as children, visited their graves and left flowers. I even wrote them a letter about the life I'd built, about my adoptive parents, about how I turned out okay. I've been dating someone new for 4 months now. Her name is Grace. On our 3rd date, I told her everything about my adoption. She listened quietly and said, "That must have been so hard for all of your parents. How lucky that you were so loved." She's already met Patricia, the private investigator who tracked down my parents' letters. Patricia and I have coffee once a month now, and she told me she's never seen a case like mine. Usually, reunions are painful or complicated. Rarely do they end with peace. The inheritance has mostly stayed invested, but I did use some of it to start a scholarship fund at my adoptive parents' alma mater. It's for adopted kids heading to college, and I named it after all 4 of my parents, biological and adoptive alike. Mallory did try one more time to reach me, through a mutual friend. She said she'd heard about the scholarship and wanted to apologize for everything. The friend said she seemed sincere. My reply was simple. Tell her I hope she finds peace, because I already have. The last thing I discovered in my adoption papers was a short note from the agency. My biological parents had left one final message for me. "You are loved. You are loved. You will always be loved." They were right. It just took me a long time to understand who really meant it. Hug your parents. The ones who raised you. The ones who gave you life. Or the ones you've chosen for yourself. The real ones don't care about labels.